Yo, what is up, guys? It's your girl Bex, and welcome back to the race rundown post Spanish Grand Prix. Before we get started, if you could leave me a like, leave me a follow, leave me a comment, all that fun admin stuff, that would be fantastic. The engagement means a lot to me, and it helps me be able to continue making the show. So without further ado, let's just get into it. What an amazing weekend. I just want to start that off there. What an amazing weekend for being a McLaren fan. Absolutely fantastic performance from the team overall. Oscar had an amazing start from the off. Max then overtakes Lando into P2, with Lewis having an absolutely diabolical start and Albon taking on front wing damage. Lap 9. Following on from the absolutely diabolical start that he had, Leclerc then gets the opportunity with the good old team orders to just scoot on by past the 7.5-time world champion. And the preposterous, that's the word we're going to use, race weekend for Hamilton continues. Then, lap 13. Lando passes Max with ease. The McLaren just looks significantly faster in comparison. Lando is very much playing the championship game at the moment. When Max took the pass, he didn't try and fight back because he knew that Max would not yield, and that was a very smart decision from Lando. Then, following on from that, George and Max begins on lap 19. George versus Max. It's a story that everyone's been talking about this weekend, and we're going to dive into it on the tail end of this rundown. Fernando Alonso, can we just give this man a second? Lewis Hamilton had an absolutely diabolical weekend. However, Fernando Alonso had one of the best weekends so far this season. Is that because Stroll was not present? I will let you guys decide. Did anyone miss Stroll? I personally didn't. Moving on. Lap 23, Oscar pits and Max is in the lead. Lap 24, Antonelli gets past Gasly. Hulkenberg was absolutely smashing it at this point. We then have the Albon versus Lawson. Alex didn't give the position back and then had to retire the car due to front wing damage, which was terrible for my fantasy team. Not a fan of how that worked out. However, it is what it is. He then had to retire the car. Then Lawson again, he was on one when it came to road incidents this week. It was just, I don't know what was going through his head. Probably the same as what was going through Max's. Not a lot. So lap 31, Lawson and Behrman continue to battle on. I've got a note here saying that in reference to Lawson, for someone who says that he's the shit, he really is shit. Lando's told to push at this point over the team radio. He then says that he can't because his front left is graining and he doesn't want to push and make it worse. Smart choice when it comes to the driver's championship position so far. He's definitely thinking more long term than short term, which I can appreciate. Lap 36, Max then overtakes Charles to be in third behind the McLarens. Then, in terms of Ferraris, we see lap 47, Hamilton pits. He was slightly out on the front left when it came to the positioning in the box, which, do we think that could have contributed? Potentially. He was undercut by George at this point, which is honestly just embarrassing considering he's your old teammate. It wasn't looking good for the old Ferraris at that point. Lap 47, Bortoleto and Hulkenberg then told to switch. Hulkenberg was, I don't know what that car was powered by this weekend, but honestly, he was fucking gunning for it. And I was here for it. Lap 52, Behrman and Lawson fighting. And because they were fighting for position, did not notice the blue flags. This meant that Lando got stuck in that whole mess and allowed Max to catch up slightly. Max then nearly crashed into the back of Lawson. Behrman didn't see him till late. Behrman then has to give the place back to Lawson. Honestly, it was a whole mess. Max was just effing jeffing, waving hands at Behrman, just fuming. Lap 55, we then get hit with a double yellow. Now, at this point, we haven't seen who's gone off the track, so we're all thinking, could it be one of the rookies? Yes, it was. However, it was not the usual culprit. This was Kimi Antonelli flying off into the gravel trap, which then turned into a safety car. Now, we were thinking, did he overcook it? Did he end up just flying off the track? Like, what was the deal? Turns out, power unit failure. The car just shit itself. It was 1 minute it was there, the next minute it was not. This, I believe, is the second time that we've had power unit issues with the Mercedes, and considering that they are providers of engines to other teams, this is worrying. So definitely something to keep an eye on. So this safety car then allows McLaren to do the ultimate double stack. Oh, it was masterful. It was masterful. Then Max comes in with a screaming pit stop. So Norris has a 3.9 second pit stop. A little bit slow for us, not going to lie. Then Max comes in, absolute screamer of a pit stop, 2.4 in true Red Bull fashion. Then everybody takes a second to look at what tyres Max is on. Max is on brand new hards. Huh? Well, this is now problematic because we know that everybody else is on softs. Use softs as well, so they've got grip. Max is on shiny new hards that take forever to heat up in the first place and just do not have the grip. So we're all wondering what the hell is going to happen there. Leclerc pits at the same time. Max is shocked by the hards, basically says, why the fuck are we on these tyres? The Red Bull pit wall then responds with, they were the only option, and seeing his tyre allocation, that was the only option that he had left. Cars then obviously have to unlap themselves, and we sit behind the safety car, you know, wasting a couple more laps, etc. Lap 60 to 61, the safety car then comes in. Piastri slows right down. At this point, he slows right down to the point where he basically does an emergency stop, which I thought was absolutely mad at the time. I've watched it back a couple more times, and I don't know if it's just Lando's reaction times or what, but he managed to clock it. Max, on the other hand, did not, and nearly rear-ended Lando, which was just jokes, to be honest, as if his weekend wasn't already bad enough. So because they were in the third sector, Oscar controls the speed, so he can slow right down if he wanted to, and oh boy did he slow down. He was basically at walking pace at that point. The safety car goes in, Oscar jets off. Fair play to the man, gets an amazing start. Norris follows him. The world holds their breath to see Max and how his tyres are going to react. And we didn't have to wait very long because Max's tyres basically are not warm enough, snaps him almost completely off the track. Like, how he held on to that is actually pretty impressive. And Leclerc just goes right past him on the restart because Max is on hards, Leclerc's on softs. It's a no-brainer. Leclerc was going to go round him straight away. It was a no-brainer, you know. Max is just not happy. Max then starts moaning that Charles rammed him on the straight. Just absolute jokes. That wasn't the case at all. You can see it from the onboards. You can see it from the videos. He turned into Leclerc. Leclerc didn't turn into him. Leclerc didn't even move. So the fact that he was saying, Leclerc smashed into Leclerc smashed into me. He did not smash into him. There was no contact besides Max turning into him. So that was red flag number one, in my opinion. Then, because of this incident between Leclerc and Max, George was having a little bit of a sniff. Now, we all know the past history between Max and George. It was great fun watching that on Drive to Survive. It was great fun watching all the memes and everything, especially the Wicked crossover. I loved that. I loved that movie as well, so that was fantastic. So basically, the gist of it was George overcooked the corner. So Max had to use the runoff. Now, there was mixed opinions about whether it was George's corner or Max's corner. In hindsight, the stewards, myself, and the commentary team all agree that it was Max's corner because George overcooked it. Max was still slightly ahead. However, if you didn't have all those angles, you might not have seen that. So, at this point, Max stays ahead, that's fine. It then gets noted that it's under investigation, and at this point, I feel like Red Bull shit themselves a little bit. I don't know who made this call, but the pit wall tell Max to give the position back to George, which in my opinion was cock up number one, because it was only under investigation at this point. There was no official, we're going to give you a penalty, give the place back. So at this point, it was like, oh, okay, so have they been on the blower? Basically saying, we're going to give you a penalty, give the freaking place back. So anyway, Max slows down, looks as though he's going to give the place back on lap 64. Max is fuming, basically saying, no, I'm not going to do that. What the fuck is this? You know, fuming, as always. And then decides, in his wisdom, fuck knows why, to crash into George deliberately. And I know the Max fans will go, oh, he just lost his temper. I don't give a fuck. If that was anybody else crashing into Max, you would be fucking fuming. But because he did it, and you don't want to admit the guy's a wanker, you'll let him get away with it. He is disgusting for that, to be honest. Absolutely disgusting. It was completely uncalled for. The man's a wanker, and you will never change my mind. The 3.5-time world champion is a wanker. There we go. That's the soundbite you will need. So he deliberately crashes into George, even though it was completely uncalled for. At that point, I'm screaming he should be black flagged, because he fucking should for that kind of behaviour. Then the second most shocking thing happens at that point. The green lawnmower, aka the Kick Sauber of Hulkenberg, breezes past Lewis Hamilton, the 7.5-time world champion Lewis Hamilton. Quite frankly, embarrassing. So we had red flag number 1, then we've had red flag number 2 in Max crashing into George, and then we've had red flag number 3 of Lewis just not having a good weekend and getting overtaken by a kick. A fucking green lawnmower. Like, hello? Embarrassing, in my opinion. And then, obviously, lap 66, Oscar wins by a landslide. It's a McLaren 1-2. And at this point, Max is in 4th. He then gets hit with a 10-second penalty for causing a collision. Now, might I add, this was for causing the collision with Russell. This had nothing to do with going off the track and gaining an advantage. So this is where we get to the off-track news that came out this morning at time of recording, which is Monday the 2nd. It has been released that the stewards were not going to take any further action when it came to Max going off the track with the whole altercation with George, because of the fact that George overcooked it and Max was ahead at the corner. So it was technically Max's corner. So whatever information that Red Bull got, that was fuck up number 1. Fuck up number 2 was then obviously Max ramming into George on purpose because he's a wanker and just loses his temper for no fucking reason because he's a wanker. He then receives a 10-second time penalty for causing a collision, which I personally think is far too fucking lenient, to be honest. I think the guy's a wanker and should have got way worse than that. Then, a little bit later on down the line, he then also receives 3 penalty points. Now, if you've been keeping track, and for those that don't know, a little bit of a quick recap, if you reach 12 penalty points on your super license, you receive an automatic race ban for 1 race, as we found out with Magnussen last season. So, with these 3 penalty points, I would like to point out that the wanker has 1 penalty point left before he has an automatic race ban. Surely that tells you all that you need to know, because it's a fucking joke. If you can't control your anger, you should not be behind the wheel of a borderline death machine, because that situation could have been a lot more dangerous. Do I think it was strategic that he hit George wheel to wheel? 100%. Because if he hits George wheel to wheel, you can't leave... It didn't leave any damage. He was hoping that the onboards weren't going to see it. Well, we fucking did. There's about 30 different cameras. So, considering you thought that we were going to not see that, that's enough about George and Max, because I will lose my fucking rank because I hate Max. And I will stand by that. This weekend proved why I hate him so much, because not only is he a stickler for the rules when it suits him but throws out the rule book when it doesn't suit him, he's just a wanker who loses his temper. And it's like, if somebody else did that to you, you'd be on the blower straight away. Like, fuck off. Play by the rules or fuck off. Simple as. Play by the rules or go fuck yourself and go do another sport somewhere else. Because you're not just going to get wins handed to you for being a wanker. It's not going to happen. And you're not going to get away with it either. Right, I'm not even going to go there. You get the gist of where that's going, but whatever. So then, the final bit of news I want to touch on, which is more funny than aggressive, which will hopefully bring my mood down a little bit, is that Stroll wasn't racing this weekend. Now, a lot of people were like, oh, he's just hurt his hand and wrist. Well, we know that he's had a past injury with his hand and wrist. However, it has since come out to the press that Stroll lost his temper in the garage after being knocked out at the end of Q2, in which he lapped 0.53 seconds slower than his teammate Fernando Alonso. Word was going around the paddock that Stroll had broken some things in the garage and sworn at team members, which more than likely led to the issue with his hand. When they were asked about this, a team spokesperson said that Lance was upset. Now, if that's not pick me my dad's rich behaviour, I don't know what is. You all know that I don't think this man should be behind the wheel of a Formula One car. This is not a shock to anybody. And I think he's also a wanker and should be removed from his seat immediately. And I just think that neither Stroll or Max should be behind the wheel of Formula One cars. At least for a week. We should just give them a timeout. So, on that note, we have Canada next week. So we're going to have a little bit of a break. Thank the Lord, because my computer is being put to work with all these edits after this European triple header. So until then, I've been your girl Bex. This has been the Race Rundown, and I'll catch you all again in Canada next week. Peace!